Well, hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar, and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Market receives a fillip from Wipro and Kotak Mahindra Bank earnings. Power, financials and telecom stocks power the Nifty to move above the 23,300 mark. Sensex rises 454 points. The union government is considering telecom industry's demand, seeking a waiver of the accrued penalty and interest on their adjusted gross revenue dues. However, there is no timeline or finality on whether the relief can be granted. The Supreme Court has already rejected telecom companies' plea and upheld the AGR demand raised by the centre. The US Capitol decks up for the inauguration of Trump 2.0. Trump addresses a victory rally in Washington on Sunday evening, pledges a barrage of executive orders on day one itself, says starting tomorrow he will act with historic speed and strength and fix every single crisis facing USA.
I think he won the elections on the two I's, fighting inflation and on immigration.
Today is the end of the post-Cold War era. It is a new era. It is a G0 era.
The spectre of Donald Trump looms large at Davos. World Economic Forum President Borge Brende says Trump will use tariffs as a negotiating tactic, will focus on immigration and inflation, which dominated his campaign rhetoric. Eurasia Group's Ian Bremmer says that Trump 2.0 is the law of the jungle, with Trump as the apex predator. In an exclusive chat, Blinkit CEO Albinder Dhinsa tells CNBC TV 18 that the company will not enter the price wars to drive growth. Says he's betting on new businesses like its ambulance service and its fresh food delivery to cement its position. Meanwhile, Zomato's net profits fall by over 50% to 59 crore rupees despite a 64% rise in net revenues. The quick commerce vertical reports an EBITDA loss on the back of higher investments in store expansion. Fintech major Paytm's net loss narrows to 208 crore rupees even as its digital payments business recovers from the winding down of its payments bank unit. Performance was helped by a rise in gross merchandise value, other incomes and subscriber base, but net revenues are down 36%. Company Law Tribunal orders the liquidation of debt-ridden airline Govt. Lenders had filed an application in September last year. Govt is the second airline in the last 4 months after Jet Airways to head towards liquidation. The airline had moved the NCLT for voluntary bankruptcy proceedings in May 2023. A CNBC TV 18 news break is confirmed. India lifts curbs on sugar exports, allows 1 million tons of sugar to be shipped overseas till September this year. Move to help support millers, offload surplus stock and prop up domestic prices. Global sugar prices hit a 3-year low. Fresh lease of life for TikTok in the USA after Trump's intervention. The platform begins restoring services after Trump says that they will have to save TikTok. Adds that he will give the Chinese company a 90-day extension to find new owners. 90 Palestinians freed from Israeli prisons in exchange for 3 Israeli women in phase 1 of the Gaza ceasefire. Hundreds of aid trucks queue up outside Gaza to deliver supplies to the war-battered region. Well, we'll come to all of that and a lot more in just a bit. But first, to the market action for the day. Well, it was a positive start to the week for the Wall Street. Positive earnings commentary from Kotak Mahindra Bank and Wipro gave the markets a much-needed fillip. The power stocks, financials as well as telecom stocks barred the Nifty to above 23,300 mark. And well, speaking of the markets, here's a look at the money market action as well. The rupee remained steady and appreciated slightly against the US dollar as the dollar index traded lower ahead of US President Donald Trump's inauguration. Other Asian currencies, including the Chinese yuan and the Korean won, also traded higher. However, $1 still costs over 86 rupees and 50 paise. Well, the government is likely to consider the telecom industry's demand to waive the penalty and interest component of AGR dues. Sources have told CNBC TV 18 that telcos reached out to the government to seek relief. This after the Supreme Court rejected a curative plea for the recomputation of this demand. Remember, the government had earlier allowed a moratorium and staggered payment schedule as relief, but no waiver had been granted. Shares of Vodafone Idea and Bharti Airtel rose in early trade on the back of this development. However, there is no timeline, there is no finality on whether such a relief will come through. Well, with just a few weeks to go for the union budget, Cellular Operators Association of India has submitted a series of recommendations to the Finance Ministry. The recommendations include abolishing the Universal Service Obligation Fund contributions and reducing the license fee from 3% to just 1%. The association has also advocated for removal of customs duties on telecom equipment to zero. And meanwhile, the National Company Law Tribunal has ordered liquidation of low-cost airline Govt. The NCLT has approved this decision of the Committee of Creditors to liquidate the airline. The lenders had filed an application to liquidate Govt in September of 2024 after Govt was left without a single aircraft and no viable revival plan in sight. The airline had filed for a voluntary insolvency resolution process in May of 2023. Now, incoming President Donald Trump is set to take oath of the office as the 47th President of the United States. The U.S. Capitol has decked up for the inauguration. Bitcoin also hit a new record high on Monday, crossing over $109,000. Today, on the back of this ceremony, the ceremony will see the likes of outgoing President Joe Biden, tech CEOs including his aide Elon Musk, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, and Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg in attendance. Trump's victory rally in Washington last evening was peppered with promises of deporting millions of immigrants and better governance. He has pledged a barrage of executive orders on day one itself.
We're going to stop the invasion of our borders. We're going to reclaim our wealth. We're going to unlock the liquid gold that's right under our feet, liquid gold. We're going to bring back law and order to our cities. We're going to restore patriotism to our schools, get radical left, woke ideologies the hell out of our military and out of our government. And we are going to make America great again.
It's going to be an explosive start to Donald Trump's presidency. He will be inaugurated at Capitol Hill right behind. That will be at 12 noon local time here in Washington, D.C. Immediately after that, and we mean immediately, he will begin to issue a rush of executive orders. It is usual for a president to be inaugurated, to then go back to his office at the Oval, pass some ceremonies, and then begin to issue orders. Trump is not waiting. He's not even waiting for lunch. Between 12 noon and lunch, right here at the Senate, he is set to issue a rush of orders. There are estimates he'll issue anything between 100 and 200 presidential executive orders today. Relatively, Biden in his 4 years as president issued 160 such orders. Trump is set to issue very many more than that on day one. Primarily, we know these will relate to immigration issues, and the move will be to get illegal migrants out of the country, and that's going to be a long way to go. About 11 million such migrants in the U.S., and that's an estimate. It could be more. And even if it's 11 million, getting that many people on a one-way flight out of the U.S. is not going to be easy. It'll be logistically difficult. It'll be legally difficult. Then he wants to get the January 6 rioters who were convicted out of prison, and there are people waiting outside prison, waiting to welcome them out. And then, of course, internationally, we're going to have an order or some sort of, if not order, an intention or some form of solution to see if the Ukraine war can be ended. That has been a long-standing promise of his. He said he'll do it within 24 hours of taking office. So if he's as good as his word, that war should be over very soon. Let's see what Trump has by way of a solution to that one. This is going to be the start of a whole different tone of presidency. He's going to do it differently, and that's not just bombast, that's just not hyperbole. Trump really intends to take some very bold decisions. They will be controversial. What we are no longer in doubt about is that they're going to come very fast. They're going to come thick and fast, in fact, and they're going to start today.
Well, the spectre of Donald Trump looms large at Davos as well. Global thought leaders CNBC TV 18 has been speaking to have said that Trump's unpredictability remains a big threat to global growth.
So for him in the U.S., I think he won the elections on the two I's, fighting inflation and on immigration. So I think we will see very soon some steps on the immigration side. But on the inflation, it's a more of a mixed thing. So he will need to also then share what is his economic policy to keep the growth going, but also making sure that inflation is not coming back.
I think the opening salvos are meant to shock. It's meant to say this is the law of the jungle, what I call a G0 world, where he's the apex predator. And, you know, that's not a bad place to be. If you're the United States and if you're Trump, you're going to get a lot of wins that way. Today is the end of the post-Cold War era. It is a new era. It is a G0 era. It is a geopolitical recession. We are in a bust cycle where the strong do what they will and the poor suffer what they must.
With the dollar so high.
You know, while he has, of course, said that he's going to raise tariffs and go after Mexico, go after Canada, and so on and so forth, what does it mean as far as global growth in itself is concerned? Because the IMF is also, while it's put out an outlook, a forecast of 3.3% for global growth, it is likely to have to factor in what eventually happens on the tariff front, you know, and that being a risk factor for global growth.
The big risk factor, tariffs are not good. The big risk factor is the unpredictability, the instability of it. If you only had tariffs in India, if that was the only problem, your economy would be much bigger than it is now. Tariffs tend to come with a lot of baggage, a lot of other policies that go in the same direction, non-tariff barriers, as we call them, things that are obstacles to trade and investment. Price controls potentially. So I think the problem's not just the direct hit of the tariffs, but everything it sets off. And also if they're unpredictable. One day they're high, another day we have a deal. Very hard to do business in that circumstance. But I think the big threat to global growth coming from Trump, if there is one, is the unpredictability of what he's going to do next. And he has a lot of good instincts, but they're not all good instincts. And I was a chess player. You can make a lot of good moves, and you make one really bad move, and it ruins your position. And there's a danger that he will do that.
So clearly, Trump 2.0 dominating conversations in Davos. And well, you can catch our entire coverage of the Trump presidential inauguration from 10 p.m. onwards right here on CNBC TV 18. Well, staying with the U.S., as one of his last acts as President, Joe Biden has issued preemptive pardons to General Mark Milley, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the members of Congress and their staff who served on the House committee that investigated the attempted insurrection at the U.S. Capitol on the 6th of January 2021. The pardon extends to a group of police officers as well who gave evidence before the panel. This pardon will prove a shield against any potential political persecution by his incoming successor, Donald Trump. In a statement, Biden said, and I quote, "Baseless and politically motivated investigations wreak havoc on the lives, safety, and financial security of targeted individuals and their families. These public servants have served our nation with honor and distinction and do not deserve to be targets of unjustified and politically motivated persecution," end quote. He also clarified that the issuance of these pardons should not be mistaken as an acknowledgement that any individual engaged in any wrongdoing, nor should the acceptance of these pardons be misconstrued as an admission of guilt for any offense. Well, coming back home, a CNBC TV 18 news break has been confirmed. The government has lifted curbs on sugar exports, allowing 1 million tons of sugar to be shipped overseas during the current season till the end by September this year. The move will provide relief to sugar millers who can now export surplus stocks. It will also help prop up domestic prices. The government had put a hold on sugar exports during the 2023-24 season to make sure that there was adequate supply for domestic use. Now, shares of Nazara Tech gained in early trade. This after the company said that it would sell 5.4% stake to existing investor Aksana Estates for 495 crores. This will trigger an open offer for another 26%. The company's CEO, Nitish Mittersen, said that though the promoters' group holding may fall to below 9%, they are very much in control.
We are very much, in control of the company. We are going to remain the promoters of the company and hold the positions of MD, CEO, etc. There'll be a 5.4% dilution due to the new preferential issue. So maybe our 9% will come down to 8.6 or so. Besides that, the promoters are not selling any equity at this point of time.
Well, on to the earnings action. Fintech major Paytm's losses narrowed to 208 crore rupees from 220 crore rupees on a yearly basis in the third quarter. However, consolidated revenue from operations dropped 36% on an annual basis, while it rose 10% on a sequential basis. And food delivery giant Zomato's net profit halved to 59 crore rupees in the third quarter, even as net revenue rose by 64% on a yearly basis. The revenue from quick commerce business doubled from the previous quarter. However, the vertical recorded an EBITDA loss of 30 crore rupees amidst growing competition in this space. Blinkit, meanwhile, reported an EBITDA loss on the back of higher investment in store expansion. Well, here's a CNBC TV18 exclusive. Blinkit CEO Albinder Dhinsa has said that the company will not enter the price wars to drive growth. Speaking to CNBC TV18, he added that the company will grow at a faster pace in the near future and continue to bet on new businesses like its ambulance service and its fresh food delivery to boost its position.
What's the visibility that you have on potential growth from here on, and do you believe that it's going to continue to be the kind of accelerated pace we've seen in the last 2 years, or do you believe that there is going to be, because of the base effect, etc., will also be a little bit of a slower pace of growth?
No, I think we will be able to maintain that pace of growth for the near future at least, and I think that's going to be powered by two things. One is obviously the geographic expansion as well, expansion within our existing cities, because we are still seeing that the cities are still underpenetrated. And there is also going to be expansion of the kind of products and the kind of use cases that customers use us for, right? And I think this is going to make sure that for the near future, we would be still, growing at a fairly fast clip. Most of our growth is more usually constrained by our ability to invest ahead of time in infrastructure, right? Yeah. So if you look at warehousing, the timeline for that investment is usually a year before we need it. When you look at stores, that timeline is about 6 months before we need it, right? So I think whenever we sort of look at growth, the challenge that it always gets cut off is not what we see where the potential market is going, but sort of where our supply chain capabilities will be. And I think with more competition, we expect the overall market size to also grow faster, because now there are more people out there talking about awareness. Yeah. Of course, that creates its own issues, but...
So let's talk about the issues that it's creating. I mean, the obvious one that everybody is talking about is that, there is going to be a discounting war, and what does that mean as far as profitability is concerned, including for the likes of you? What does it mean in terms of market share? How do you retain the kind of market share that you have? I mean, how are you looking at competition? What are you trying to do to create differentiation? What are you trying to do to create the moat around you so that you can take it on?
See, our point of view on this is not actually driven by competition, but more by what do we mean to the end customers, like what we were talking about, right? We are a way to sort of, for the customers to live a better life, which also means that they should feel smart about their financial decisions as well. So we can't be gouging them for pricing, like we said, right? We can't be like, hey, you pay 20% extra just because I'm coming to your house in 10 minutes. I think customers want us to be fair, right? But I don't think that discounting necessarily is something that we have indulged in or being involved in outside of what the brands are happy to do on their own, right? And I think we will maintain that way because we don't want to lose our North Star, which is that service quality for the end customers, for solving for their actual use cases. And our ability to invest in better service quality is actually dependent on good economics, right? We can't be actually like burning a ton of money and then say that, hey, we will still continue investing in service. Then, why not do that first and everything else comes later? So I think we have sort of maintained that as a North Star, and we will continue to operate it that way.
Well, now the Income Tax Department has added an extra 1,000 crore rupees to its direct tax kitty for FY25, and it's done this by tracking down mistakes taxpayers have made. CNBC TV 18's Timsy Jaipuria joins us now with more details. Timsy, tell us what exactly has the tax department been doing to raise this additional 1,000 crores?
Clearly, the taxman has been busy, and his efforts at sniffing out erroneous income declarations and return filings have paid off. As of the 31st December 2024, the Income Tax Department has identified 90,000 salaried taxpayers who have wrongly claimed deductions in their tax filings. These erroneous filings amounted to 1,070 crore rupees in unpaid taxes, and the tax department has been busy ensuring this money is recovered. CNBC TV 18 was told by sources that a lot of these errors came to light during various search, seizure and survey operations conducted by the department, and that most of these errors stemmed from incorrect deductions claimed under sections 80C, 80D, 80E, 80G, 80GGB, 80GGC. Remember, these sections pertain to tax-deductible investment like PPF, health insurance premium, life insurance premium, education loans, donations to specified charities, etc. Tax officials confronted these taxpayers with the errors and began the recovery process under provisions of Section 139(8)A of the Income Tax Act. This section allows any person to file an updated income tax return within 24 months from the end of the relevant assessment year. This concept was introduced in the Union Budget 2022 to improve tax compliance without going through a lengthy and tedious legal process. We also learned from sources that the process is still going on, so we could, by end of this year, see a lot more in recovered income tax collections. Back to you.
Right, Timsy, thanks so much for that. With that, time now for slipping into a very short break, but coming up, fresh lease of life for TikTok in the US after Trump's intervention. The platform begins restoring services after Trump says they will have to save TikTok. Details on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching India Business Hour. Now, Chinese social media company TikTok has said that it was restoring services to users in the US after the platform went dark on Sunday. This was in response to a federal ban that US President-elect Donald Trump said he would try to pause by executive order on his first day in office. Reports indicate the CEO of TikTok is expected to attend Trump's inauguration ceremony tonight.
TikTok announced it was restoring service to users in the U.S. on Sunday after it briefly went dark in anticipation of a law forcing it to shut down in the country. The video sharing app said the reversal was thanks to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who said he would revive the app in the U.S. after he was sworn into office on Monday. A bipartisan law had threatened to force TikTok to either divest its U.S. operations or shut down, citing national security concerns and data risks due to the app's Chinese parent company, ByteDance. A unanimous U.S. Supreme Court upheld the law on Friday. But on Sunday, Trump wrote on Truth Social that he would postpone the period of time before the law took effect and set a goal, 50% ownership in the app by U.S. investors. He said, quote, "By doing this, we save TikTok, keep it in good hands, and allow it to stay up." Trump's support for TikTok is a reversal from when he first pushed for the ban in 2020 while in office. Even if temporary, the unprecedented shutdown of TikTok could have a wide-ranging impact. The U.S. has never before banned a major social media platform. The law, passed overwhelmingly by Congress, gives the incoming Trump administration sweeping authority to ban or seek the sale of other Chinese-owned apps. Privately held ByteDance is about 60% owned by institutional investors such as BlackRock and General Atlantic, while its investors and employees own 20% each. It has more than 7,000 employees in the U.S.
Well, staying with international news, at least 90 Palestinians have been freed from Israeli jails as a part of the ceasefire deal. People across West Bank and Gaza can be seen celebrating the hostage release. This comes a day after Hamas released 3 Israeli nationals from their captive back to their home country. Today, Palestinians in Gaza were also seen returning to their ruined homes and awaiting the delivery of food and medical assistance. Humanitarian aid supplies also continue to come into the enclave. Around 600 trucks entered Gaza, carrying food, water, and medical supplies. Well, back home, a CBI court in Kolkata has awarded a life sentence to Sanjay Roy, the convict in the rape and murder of a doctor at the RG Kar Medical College and Hospital in August last year. The court has ordered Roy to pay 50,000 rupees as a fine and the West Bengal government to pay 17 lakh rupees to the victim's family as compensation. Roy was the sole convict in the rape and murder. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.